And when we follow Jesus, Jesus said this in Luke 6:46. He says, "Why call me Lord and do not the things I say?" Why do we call Jesus Lord yet we don't obey Him? And that's what it means to follow Jesus. It doesn't mean to come to church on Sunday morning and sing and give somebody in the plate and go home and live like you want. What it means to follow Jesus is you follow Jesus in obedience in every single area of your life. That's what Lord means. It means He's your boss. And your boss tells you to do something at work, what are you going to do? You're going to do it. Or you're going to be pounding the pavement looking for another one. Another job. And these days I suggest you don't do that. And that's what it means to have Jesus as your Lord. Let's look at a couple of these other verses here coming up here. Galations chapter 6, 1 through 3. He kind of gives us an idea of what he's going to lead into in verse 26, where he says, "Let us not become boastful, challenging one another, envying one another." Then he goes right into the next statement, because remember when the Bible was first written, when Paul first wrote the church in Galatia, he didn't have chapter 26, and then, or verse 26, and then he didn't say to himself, now I'm going to start on chapter 6. So the thought just kind of continues onward, okay? So notice what he says, "Brethren, if a man is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, looking to yourselves, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and thus fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself." You see, Paul knows that we're to live in the Spirit. And Paul understands, though, that we are not perfect as Christians. We all are going to stumble in our Christian walk. We're all going to, at some time or another, lose our footing in our spiritual walk. It reminds me of a story about a man who was a man from Europe. This last August, he went to the Grand Canyon. Now, has anybody never been to the Grand Canyon here before? Just raise your hand if you've never been to the Grand Canyon. Okay? Let me tell you, it's worth the drive. It takes you about 4.5 hours to get up there. And if you have nothing else to do on a Saturday morning or on a day off, and Sunday you should be in church, okay? But anyway, go to the Grand Canyon, and it is amazing. It is beautiful. I mean, it's like, wow. Well, a man from Europe, I'm sure, came over to the States and said, "Hey, I want to go see the Grand Canyon." And what he did, he went to Mather Point, and he was taking pictures. And, you know, that's what people do. They take their cell phone cameras and the camcorders, and they take pictures. And as he was taking pictures this one fine day in August, this year, he got a little too close to the edge, and he fell. Yeah. Fell about approximately 75 feet. Now, witnesses said about 3 o'clock, they noticed, as he's taking pictures, he just wasn't paying attention. I don't know what he was doing, but he's taking pictures, and over the edge he went. And I think it was about 4:15 later, 4:45 later that day, when the Grand Canyon Rescue, the park rangers, were able to rappel down to him. He fell approximately 75 feet, or about 7 or 8 stories. So that's a long ways to fall. Fortunately, he was conscious, and so they basically were able to call in the helicopter, the rescue helicopter, and they got him rigged. And so you'll see on the screen behind me, they rigged him up to a helicopter, and they flew him over to Flagstaff Medical Center, and he suffered their neck injuries and ankle and I think wrist injuries. He got too close to the edge, and he fell over. You see, this kind of reminds me of this idea of, in our Christian faith, what causes us to sometimes lose our footing in our Christian faith? Because that's what Paul is addressing. He says, "Brethren, if any man or any woman," okay, women, you aren't out of this, okay, "if any Christian is caught in any trespass." So, what causes us to lose our footing? I wanted to examine that for a minute or two. Because we all are Christians, hopefully. If you never call upon Christ as Savior, then you're not a Christian. The only way to heaven is calling upon Jesus as your Savior. Okay? The point is this. We all live our lives day after day, and every once in a while we kind of get off the path. We kind of stumble. Sometimes we fall. Okay? And so what causes us to lose our footing? Well, I think the first thing is we ignore the warning signs. You see, we have plenty of warning signs in the Bible that tells us what to do and what not to do. And we all are fairly intelligent people. I can speak for most of you, I think. Teaching. We all can read. We all can listen to some degree. We all can understand what the Bible wants us to do. It's pretty plain and simple. And sometimes as Christians, you see, we want to get so close to the edge that we want to look over and say, well, I know this is the boundary of God's will for my life. I know I'm not supposed to be doing this particular thing, but how close can I get before I fall over into the valley? Right? And so sometimes we just ignore the warning signs. Perhaps as this man was taking pictures in the Grand Canyon, perhaps he just wasn't paying attention. He was just looking, taking pictures, and the next thing he knew, he was 75 feet on his back looking up like, wow, what happened to me? Here I am. It's indifferent. Sometimes in our Christian faith, what causes us to lose our footing is we just don't really care. We become very indifferent. We become distracted. I remember once, someone here at the church, I won't mention who, and I were hiking in the mountains there at South Mountain, and I was looking around. I wasn't really indifferent. I just wasn't paying attention to where I was going. And before I knew it, I rolled and I tumbled, and I was full of these little stickers. And yeah, it wasn't funny. What are you laughing for? I can't remember the name of the trail now. But anyway, yeah, I wasn't paying attention. Next thing I knew, I was doing donuts in the gravel and in the cactus, and it hurt. Just wasn't paying attention. And sometimes in our Christianity, we just don't care. We get too busy. We get distracted. You see? And we just go on our lives and we kind of forget about God. And we forget about spiritual things. And we forget about people who live near us, people we work with, people that we know, our relatives. We forget there's a heaven and a hell. And we just go on our way just thinking, okay, whatever, I'll just do whatever. And we become very indifferent. And before we know it, we find ourselves tumbling down a ravine full of stickers.